I spent most of the morning watching all of the reviews on, the previews on the M5 Mark III. And of course, the first one I always watch is Peter Forsgaard. He's right now he's my favorite Micro Four Thirds or Olympus camera channel, and he did a really good job, I think, just talking about the camera in real life terms. And then all the other channels, I picked up Red 35 and I watched Digi Direct and a few others. And they're okay. I mean, they went through all the specs, and Robin Wong did very good also. He's really been cranking out those Olympus videos, right? I'm starting to become a fan of his now. I hadn't watched them much before, but the thing with Robin Wong, I think what's really going to carry his channel, regardless of his content is fine, is he's always smiling. Oh, yeah, and if you get a chance, go over to Red 35's channel and give him a belated happy birthday, and also congratulate him on being an Olympus visionary, which is that's great. I mean, that being a visionary really gives you access to gear like, obviously like he got to the E-M5 Mark III. But that's how you can tell when somebody is in the know, more so than I am, right? Is when I'm sitting there jibber jabbering and talking about the M5 Mark III this past week, and Peter and Red and Robin and everyone dead silent, not a word, because they're on a full non-disclosure agreement, right? While they're testing the M5 Mark III. So that'll be a hint to who has access to the camera and who doesn't before it's actually announced. Is when they normally talk about a particular brand or camera, and nothing comes out of them until the day of the announcement, right? I'm going to a local launch event here that we have. I'm very lucky to have a great camera store here, District Camera. There's one in Arlington, one in Burke, Virginia, local to me, and they're doing a launch event for the M5 Mark III. So I'm going to go to that this weekend on Saturday, and either way, it's always fun to go there because you get lots of freebies. I mean, just junk, but like I got this EM1X pen. Oh, hey, check that autofocus. The M5 Mark III is going to have this autofocus. Because watch, when I take the pen away, it should come right back to me. So that's pretty freaking awesome. But anyway, so I'm gonna be sporting probably an EM5 Mark III pen here come next week. Is the M10 Mark III still a good buy in your opinion? Yeah. The M10 Mark III, really, it's just a revision of the M10 Mark II. And honestly, I'd probably get the M10 Mark II over the M10 Mark III because you can get it cheaper and it's 99.9% the same. The only difference really being in the styling. And the M10 Mark III, they cut back a couple of the features that you can kind of work around on some of them by going into the menu directly. But the one thing that kept me from buying that camera was the lack of custom settings. So I can't save like custom 1, custom 2, custom 3, for example, different settings. And that's the only thing that really held me back from it, because I thought it was really a beautiful camera, and I would have bought it just for the cosmetics alone. But when the functionality had to be at least what the M10 Mark II had, and it was not. So that's why I didn't buy it. But the M5 Mark III, that's sort of I'm splitting my purchase decision 3 ways on that. One is 30% or 33%. I'm buying it because I have this channel, right? And I feel kind of obligated to buy it so I can start doing tutorials and things like that, but like I did on the M10 Mark II. 33% is because I think it's a beautiful camera. It's a very cosmetic decision, just like my Pen F, right? I got some bling for it. Look, I got this little red button and a nice wooden grip for it. And this grip has the Arca Swiss plate. Yeah, this was totally a vanity purchase for me. I didn't need this camera. So that's the second reason I'm buying it. The third reason is because I want a more compact E-M1 Mark II, and that's essentially what it is, right? It's the E-M1 Mark II in a smaller body. David says the E-M5 Mark III is the perfect camera for vlogs. It is. It is perfect. It's funny how it's such a simple thing, right? To make a good vlogging camera. Like I have the Pen PL8 has been the perfect vlogging camera up till now, with one exception. Because the screen flips down, so I had to come up with a workaround. You know, I got one of those braces, and it's been fine. But it has a mic jack right here. You just get this little adapter, and it slides right in. And unfortunately, with the Pen PL9 and probably the PL10, the pictures that I saw still don't have an adapter where you can add a mic jack to the Pen PL8. And this has really been the perfect vlogging camera up until the E-M5 Mark II. Or, yeah, well, the E-M5 Mark II. But the E-M5 Mark III, being even lighter, is awesome. Yeah, the E-M10 Mark II is really the perfect street camera. Mainly, I prefer my Pen F, honestly. I do prefer this because I like the color profiles and being able to tweak, you know, everything on the JPEG side. But the M10 Mark II, because of the screen, this is actually a better camera to use for street photography. It's so much easier just to kind of tilt this up and down when you're out in the field and get those low angle shots than it is to kind of fiddle with, you know, flipping this around back and forth. Because then it becomes virtually a two-hand operation all the time, because even when you have the screen flipped out, you still have to come back and adjust it sometimes when you're trying to get that low angle. And you can see I put a little piece of tape here because it's a pain to pull this thing out. Just a little piece of electrical tape that I put in there. So I hope that. And then the other thing is the grip. Now they do have the grip for it, the ECG5 III, which is essentially just an Arca Swiss with an extra shutter button, so you have a better grip. And that is not enough. It needs, you know, I mean, that's a good grip for a lot of people because they don't like that big bulky like grip that has the two batteries in the side. But that other grip that has the extra batteries, where you can slide in two batteries and have a headphone jack like the current E-M5 Mark II, that's a big deal if you want to use that camera seriously for video. Because you don't want to be running out of battery and have a 30-minute time limit. Then really you have to check the camera twice, one for battery, one for time limit, and that's really a deal breaker for a lot of videographers, because that's a serious interruption in workflow when you're doing video professionally. Rob Shoot Photos says a couple of reviewers say it's got a low bitrate for video output, which is rather easier handling post-production for videos or high detail for grading. Now, it does. Now, on the video output, the cameras, all of the modern Olympus cameras do 422 8-bit output. And that extra color, okay, really increases the dynamic range all by itself. The 8-bit to 10-bit, because there's some cameras that do 10-bit. I think there's a 12-bit video camera now. But anyhow, that supposedly gives you closer to raw image dynamic range, right? They claim 12 stops, 14 stops, whatever. And I think if you're serious in the video, you're not looking at Olympus at all. Even if they included the 10-bit 422 output, I don't think that's going to draw enough people off the Panasonics, like the GH5 or GH5S. Autofocus and everything aside, it's not enough. But I've tested the output at 422 8-bit, and it's definitely a difference in the color and in the dynamic range, or a perceived dynamic range, because now it's capturing more colors and not clipping them to a different color because it doesn't have enough bit depth, because now it goes 422 instead of 420. So one of these days, if I was really hardcore in the video, I would use the 422 8-bit output more. But yeah, processing a 422 10-bit video, oh my God, you're talking a 30-minute video might be like 200 gig, right? At those levels, and that's just unusable in unbearable, I think, for 99% of people that would be buying a camera like that. So it's not it doesn't look good on paper with all of the YouTube reviewers because of the 8-bit output, but in real life, people are going to record in camera at 420 8-bit. And I think Gerald Undone, he does one of the best comparisons between 422 and 420 and 8-bit, and he's very, very technical. And gets into a lot of details. So check out Gerald Undone channel and search for his 422 video. Arthur says, agree, the high bit rate may serve the spec sheet, but yeah, it's really not it's not a deal breaker. That's why when the XT3 came out, everybody was so excited about the 10-bit 422. But they don't talk about the file sizes. My God, you're going to have to drop a 256 gig card in there and carry spares if you're going to be shooting like that. If you're shooting externally, yeah, you need an SSD that has 500 to a gig of space on it to record in that 422 10-bit. And yeah, people are not going to do that, not the average person. And if they're serious, they're going to be using the GH5 or the SH1 or whatever that is now. Yeah, the M5 Mark III is not going to be anywhere near as durable in terms of like if you drop it or bang it around as the M1 Mark II. So heavier lenses, meaning like the 12-100 Pro or any of the Pro lenses really, you're going to want the M1 Mark II instead of an E-M5 Mark III. I have the M10 Mark II and the pancake lens. What lens would you advise next? I would get the 40-150. I have a video on that. The plastic it's in my bag over here. The 40-150 kit lens. It's an f4, I think, to 5.6 or 3.5 to 4. Because when I think about lens choices, my philosophy is, how is this going to expand my photography? And a 40-150 will expand your photography a lot more than a single prime lens. You really only want to buy prime lenses or very specific lenses if you have a very specific intent, right, that you're going to use that lens for. So 17mm, definitely. If you love street photography, that's very specific type of photography. You should get that lens and skip the 40-150. But if you're just starting out and you're kind of new to photography and really want to grow, the 40-150 is the better choice. Rob says, I'm glad I streamed at the same time. Oh, you don't care what they say. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm really glad that I have the subscribers that I can relate with, or that you can relate with me, in other words, because not everyone can relate to everybody. There's a lot more people that don't relate to me than do. Okay, there's a lot more people that can relate to Tony and Chelsea than to my channel, because they have 1 million+ subscribers and they grow more than every day than I have in the last 3 years combined, right? So I don't like to say anything bad about any channel, because every channel, people connect differently with different kinds of people. And I'm just happy that I'm able to connect with a lot of you in a way that, works, right? That is productive. The handheld high-res shot mode is a little bit of a downer, I think, for a lot of people. It doesn't affect me too much because I did a video on high-res shot mode and I don't use it that much. I think it's really, I wouldn't call it a gimmick, but it's a very limited use type feature. If you're going to do handheld high-res shot a lot, you might be better suited just buying a high-res camera. It's nice to have it time to time maybe, but it shouldn't be a deal breaker either way. Did I feel nervous? Oh my God, I'm still nervous when I go out. Like when you saw me go out the last 2 nights to the National Harbor where I was doing EM1 and EM10. Man, I feel like everybody was giving me the stink eye. Maybe they weren't. And honestly, sometimes I think I would get the stink eye even if I didn't have a camera in my hand. But yeah, I'm always nervous. It's all in my head apparently, because I watch all these street photographers. They go out and they walk up to somebody, hey, how you doing? Can I take your picture? And they say sure, and I'm like, that never happens. Come on. But I did ask somebody one time, and they said sure, and I took their picture. I just haven't had the nerve to do it again since then. I try to get the street shots from behind, right, when they're walking away. But yeah, check out some street photographer channels. You know who's really good is, what's his name? I watch his channel all the time. What the heck? Jamie Windsor. There we go. Let me see if you guys can see that. This guy. He has a couple of videos on street photography and one of them is where he worked with another guy that does street photography all the time, and that guy has his own channel. I haven't watched that guy's channel much. I watched a few, but Jamie Windsor has a couple of videos on street photography you should definitely check out, because he goes out for the first time with the other guy who does street photography all the time and gets his street legs, basically asking people how to take photos or if he can take photos of them. There's a Fuji Film camera in my future. I just don't know which one yet. Because I want to try their film simulations, you know, and if I can get one cheap enough, I mean, I might go XT1 for like, I've seen them for like less than $300, and then I can get some cheap $200 lens or something for it. But I'm thinking about the Fuji X70 that came out of 3 years ago, because that has a built-in fixed lens, so I don't have to worry about buying lenses, right? I bought a camera that I can't change lenses in it, so that's going to save me money in the long run, because I have no reason to buy an Fuji camera other than I just want to play with the art filters or the film simulations. Oh, Rob is saying I should do critiques on people's photos. Man, I'm the last person to critique anybody's photo, let me tell you. I'll be happy to talk about how I might do it differently, but that shouldn't matter to anybody. You know, everybody should have kind of their own style. You know, now I'll give you an example. You know, like I watch, excuse me, I skim through a lot of the Instagram photos. Like Arthur's here today, and I skim through his a lot, and I skim through there's a couple other guys, Larry. I skim his, and when I'm thinking about photography, I skim everybody's just to see where they're going, right? Because there's a lot of travel stuff, like Hanu. She's in Portugal now, and taking lots of great photos there. But I look to those for inspiration. And really it was Arthur's Instagram feed that got me more into black and white photography. Yeah, Rob, post some more on Instagram. And okay, now for Instagram, okay, you guys tag me. Do pound robtrek, however you tag things. I never use tags. But if people have tagged my name, my account name in their photos, and I can go check them out a lot easier that way. It's so hard. I only follow a couple hundred people, and I'm still struggling to keep up with that. Tag me, and I'll be glad to check your photo out. And if I like a lot of your photos there, I'll follow you too, because I'm always looking for new inspiration. Yeah, he's giving some advice about the negative exposure comp. Yeah, I dial it back a bit just to crush the blacks a little bit, so it looks a little more natural to the eye. Because at night, yeah, the camera's going to try and expose and make the image brighter than it actually looks to the naked eye. So yeah, dialing in negative exposure comp at night in general makes the image look more natural. And like I said, our cameras, are not great at high ISO, so by dialing in some negative exposure comp and doing some of the other highlight shadow settings, you can hide a lot of that noise and just get the parts that have less noise or look clean, right? Like I said, just look at my photos in my videos or on my Instagram and you'll see the ISOs. I got some images on my Instagram, 25,000 ISO, but it looks great, you know, because you play with the light. You use the light to your advantage. Oh, USB charging. I've never been a fan of that. I mean, people talk about that like they want to be able to charge their camera via USB, and I just don't get that. It's easier just to carry a battery. It's only this big, you know, and swap it, because you can't use the camera while it's charging. So, I mean, I get it if you're driving, because my old Sony NEX camera had USB charging, and if I only had one battery, like the one that came with the camera, then that USB charging is handy. But you know, just buy some extra batteries. Now, if the USB, if they put USB-C in it, and you were able to run the camera through the USB-C, like without a battery, and they got rid of the 29-minute recording limit, or for very long time lapses, right? It'd be nice to be able to have the camera powered by the USB-C port. And that is definitely something, I'm not sure where the challenge is technically with that. And the other good thing about the E-M5 Mark III is the battery door. Look at the battery door on like the Pen F, the M10 Mark II. It's on the bottom, but it's got this slider, right? And I can tell you, I'm not alone when this thing is broken, okay? And the problem is when you push on this to open it, it puts pressure on this plate. And this plate is held on by little plastic pins that break. So every time you push on this to close it, it's putting pressure on that. And that's what happened to my E-M10 Mark II. The E-M5 Mark III and the M1 Mark II have a much better battery door design. I'd show you, but I'm using the M1 Mark II. You slide a lever like this to open the door on the bottom. And that puts no pressure directly on the plate like this does. And this was another great question I got about the monochrome settings. People are asking me, is the monochrome settings like that you have on the mode dial here on the Pen F different than on, say, the M10 Mark II? And I can say with a pretty high level of confidence, there's no difference from the black and white images you can get out of the M10 Mark II and the Pen F, with this caveat, okay? All the monochrome 2 setting on the Pen F is doing is it's cranking the highlights to +6, the shadows to -6, and then adding grain. And the grain is the thing that no other camera can do from Olympus. You can only do that on the Pen F. But if you know, I turn the grain off a lot of times on monochrome profile 2. But if you want to get very similar images to the Pen F, if not exactly the same, just do highlight shadow +6, -6 on your EM10 or whatever other Olympus camera you have, and you'll get virtually the same monotone image minus the grain options. Because the Pen F has like low, medium, high grain options that you can do. And I think that's where the secret sauce is on the Pen F. It's in the grain pattern that they use. Because apparently the grain pattern, and I eyeballed it, and there does seem to be some difference. But the grain pattern supposedly is a little bit different in the shadows than it is in the highlights. And it's supposed to mimic film a little more. And when I took my Pen F out and took it out directly against an actual film camera with black and white in it, that Pen F was really close. It really, really was close to the black and white. Color, no, it's not close at all, but black and white is very close. Yeah, Tony, the M5 Mark III is finally where it needs to be. It should have been there 2 years ago, right? I think it's, and I don't mean that it's 2 years too late. It's coming out, and it's a fantastic camera relative to anything on the market today. But I think that's a reflection of how ahead of their time Olympus really is in terms of camera features. So they could have come out with this camera 2 years ago and really blown the market away. Coming out at this point in time, it's on par with everything, but it's certainly not behind the times. I think it offers a lot of advantages that you're not going to find in any other camera. And Gordon Lang's review of the camera really said it best, where it's very compelling that Olympus included everything that a lot of manufacturers skimp on. You know, they'll have articulating screen but no mic jack, or they'll have the mic jack but it's not an articulating screen, or they have everything but then the autofocus sucks, or they have 4K but then they crop it. You know, it's like, yeah, the Canon cripple hammer, right? God, I love camera conspiracies, man. That guy, I can't wait for his video. Maybe he's put it out since I've been jibber jabbering here, but I love his channel. Oh yeah, Arthur, they're saying the ISO 6400 is supposed to be at 1600. I saw that on the camera store video. I don't buy it. I'm gonna take my EM10 Mark II and shoot it at 6400 or at 1600. Then I'm gonna take my EM1 Mark II and shoot it at 6400. I guarantee you, there's gonna be a difference. I don't believe it. That sounds very, very optimistic. Maybe on a bright sunny day, yeah. But in real life, if you're taking pictures in low light, there's not gonna be two-stop difference in performance. Yeah, Tony, no cropping. That's what I mean. So Olympus has put everything together in one camera, that's small and lightweight, right? On top of that, and weather sealed. So the camera has everything that you could cram into it that Olympus could pull off the shelf. And that's what the E-M5 Mark III is everything Olympus does best in one camera. And that's why I'm 99.9% sure I'm going to get it. Yeah, that's a good question. Why do I need the Mark III, right? EM5 Mark III when I have an EM1 Mark II? Because I want a smaller, lighter camera. It's 200 grams smaller and lighter. And just to give you an example, this EM10 Mark II is about the same size and weight as the new Mark III. This camera with the kit lens or one of the primes like the 17 weigh less than the my EM1 Mark II body only. Thanks again for joining me. We'll see you guys again soon.